So to begin the play, we're going to start over on the perspective column, which was adapt a world view. And we're going to take all 4 of those over to the social process triangles.
Oh,
Isn't this just blow your mind?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm making anyone seasick here. I got a new mouse
No.
situation.
At least you have one. Last night I had none. Today it woke up.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna make these bigger while we talk about them, so hopefully they're a little bit easier to see.
yep.
So we're going to go just one at a time. We're going to start slow and kind of get back into the social process triangles. Some of us have probably been working with it more than others at this time, more familiar, but we're going to put it in the middle. So we're going to do forge relationships across planetary places, kind of like we're right now. And I don't know, Jim, let's try you reading the 4 parts actually underneath that. Can you do that?
Underneath it.
Well, it's not there. It's another document, but
Oh,
and maybe it's enough to say that we have done an 8 columns. There's 4 deep, and each one of the 4 deep, so let's forge relationships, has another 4 points to it.
under it. Okay.
Under, yeah, that's the under part. And then, which was the data that everyone added into it. So I think we'll go ahead, at least for these 4, and kind of play without that data. You know, Jim, were you trying to move it in here?
I could share my screen and show you the spreadsheet if that's what you want. I don't know how to move it in a Miro.
Jim, Jan, were you saying that you wanted him just to read what we have that would fall
He
under
could
this?
just read it. Yeah. Yeah. The 4 parts under forge relationships.
For relationships, okay, not too long.
And welcome to Jane. Hopefully you can see our screen.
Can we do 2 sharings at once?
Forge relationship building across planetary places, personal and included mindful interactions on individual and political levels, emotional connections both ways, capacity to create transcendent purpose, and compassion to work respectfully with others.
Okay. So we'll see if it's helpful to read that. But now, would this be more of an economic, political, or cultural dynamic?
It falls more in cultural, mindful, emotional, transcendent purpose, respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect.
And Mary, I missed which one?
Oh, I didn't catch the 4th one. I started typing the 4th one and I
Oh, I
couldn't
see. Oh, okay.
keep up. I typed the first 3.
Okay. So Jim, the 4th one was,
Respectful.
Compassion to work respectfully with others.
okay. Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Okay. So then to just look at this again from, is this more of an economic dynamic, a political dynamic, or a cultural dynamic?
Seems cultural to me.
Cultural.
Okay.
To me too.
Okay. So
Mhm.
then is it more wisdom? I'll always start the left, wisdom, style, or symbols.
I think relationships for me would have to do either with the political or with style, because it sounds like it has to do with behavior.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's corporate welfare and communal style, the overlap between those 2.
Okay.
I wonder if it's social structures above communal style or
Mhm.
procreative schemes, or under economic, there's a distribution something.
Mhm.
Exchange mechanisms.
Aha, okay. Very good. Okay,
This is the world's first reusable cotton swab. It can remove up to 10 times more earwax.
now, I think what might work, can we see if you can do this? On that little sticky, can you put, let's see. Give this a number, a different number. Can you put A1 underneath on that sticky?
Like on the actual sticky?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
If we're on the Miro board, we could.
yes, and I'm putting it on my chart here to get a new.
Okay, good.
notation.
Okay.
Also, so let's put it, so we could put A1 in a couple different places, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
And so it can go off over there, but we had it under different places on style. We had it under corporate welfare. And we
Yes.
also had it under distribution. Now,
Yes.
it might get too busy doing that. I don't know.
Yeah, why don't I do this? I'm gonna try to just draw some lines for now until we see where things start to land. So what were
Okay.
the three? It was social structures. I think I heard someone say social
Yes.
structures.
Someone
Uh-huh.
said, welfare.
Corporate welfare or?
Corporate
other-
welfare, which is under political commonality, the top of it's significant engagement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Significant engagement.
I'll erase my annotation.
Oh, I see. Oh, that was the other way we could have done it, but. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
annotations are not helpful because they stay there when they stay in that place on the wall when you move the wall.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, so as
And you
far
had it under significant engagements or political freedoms?
Uh, I could hear both of those.
okay, maybe we just put it to corporate welfare then.
Sorry, I did not set this up to be.
Political freedoms has to do with individual liberties, citizen rights, and loyal opposition. Significant engagement has to do with knowledge access, meaningful involvement, and expressed conscience.
Oh, expressed conscience?
Yeah, but I like what were the three under political freedom? There was one of those about,
Individual liberties.
Yeah.
Citizen rights, loyal opposition.
Oh,
I really like the political freedom category for forging relationships across the planet.
okay.
I don't like any of the three sub points. I mean, I don't think it's any of the three sub. I think it's the connection of all three.
Okay.
Of all
Ah,
of them.
okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, good. We've done one. Okay, let's bring in the next one.
I love Miro for this. This is very cool. I've used it with the process triangle before, and it's very nice.
Uh-huh. Okay. Nurture, love, grounding, and for surrounding nature ecology. Whoa. Jim, do you want to say a bit more? I'm finding I'm wanting to know the next four underneath it.
Yes.
That's mainly because Jan and I worked really hard on these and we don't want to be overlooked.
We did.
That's very helpful.
Deep interconnectedness, nurture love for surrounding nature and ecology includes deep interconnectedness with earth, humans, society, and nature, sustained involvement in ecosystem care, energy summoned through love, and increasingly knowledgeable and mindful interactions with the biosphere.
Wow.
Can you repeat that last one, Jim?
Biosphere.
Increasingly knowledgeable and mindful interactions with the biosphere.
Okay. And what we're going to do then is wait 30 seconds so each one of us individually get a sense of where to plot it. Okay. And then or even it might be 15, but just
And for those who haven't noticed yet, I did type them into the chat, those 4 things, so you can review
okay.
them. There may be typos.
Okay. So,
Jan, I have a question.
yes,
I'm not greatly familiar. I generally know about the social triangles, but I've never worked with them.
okay.
And when I look at this one, it seems to me that it belongs in the cultural commonality.
Mhm.
Or let me go back to A1,
Yeah.
because that's where different expressions or views were voiced. And I thought it belonged in cultural commonality and what sub, I don't know.
Mhm.
And the folks put it in other places. Now, see, my question has to do with if it went in cultural commonality, that has implications for the political and the economic. And the other folks' placement seemed to me to mean the implications. But in my mind, it doesn't fit political or economic because they have to do with different things. And so I need a little tutorial.
I would like to offer a story. I'm not supporting or, but if I work with a woman who has a reforestation effort, but her ways of working are from a past economic model. She's very protective about what she knows and what she does. Therefore, it limits it. So I also feel it is related to cultural commonality than it is to economic commonality. Does that make sense or does it not make sense? Is that helpful?
Mhm.
My thoughts were, it is helpful because my thoughts were, it was definitely economic commonality in that I understand that whole area to be the foundational, that without which you can't have the others. If you, sort of like if a person doesn't have food and water and shelter, they're going to have a hard time making it on the planet. But having a planet at all is sort of what this one feels like it's about.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
very
Is
much
the-
foundational to me.
Can you say which one the it is in that sentence? Is that the
Oh,
first
I'm talking
part or
about the
second
overall
part?
one that's in the middle right now, the nurture, love, and
So
the ones under
I
that.
thought we were just, Niels was referring to the first card.
Well,
He was, but I was giving a
referring
more of the bigger picture.
Got it. Okay,
And-
just making sure I'm somewhere connected to the conversation.
And
I would say that the nurture, love, grounding in for surrounding nature and ecology definitely goes under economic, common resource, natural resources. And it has something to do with final meanings
Yeah.
or common religion because of nurturing love.
Yeah.
What
agree.
role does religion play if it doesn't nurture love? I mean, it's either under final meanings, under communal wisdom, or it's under communal symbols, which is common religion. It could go both, but anyway. And,
Evelyn, I think it could also go under useful skills.
yes, yeah.
Nurture, love, grounding in the surrounding.
Which is common wisdom.
Yeah, yes.
It's under communal wisdom, yeah.
Okay.
Useful skills. Oh, yes. That makes
Yeah.
sense too.
This is good. And it's example of things going several different places, to go back to Neil's question. How do we answer Neil's question about, like, that's a good example if that is in 3 different places. So those that, see it in 3 different places, how
Could
is
be a
that?
part of secure existence.
It could, okay. It could be part of.
And I also wondered if it fitted under political commonality for a legal base, either secure existence or a legal base. In other
Why-
words,
Why do you think that, Evelyn?
what I was thinking was if we declare that we need to protect nature and we need to protect people and we need to connect with the biosphere as part of our symbiosis of being on the earth and a part of a bigger future, how do we make it
So,
how do we make it so? I mean, how do we create laws that allow us to clean up the environment if people continue, not paying attention and not cleaning it up?
yeah. So Niels, going back to your question, there's all kinds of reasons why anybody will say it goes there, or it goes there, or it goes there.
Or that, yes,
And
yes.
and what's important in the first instance is the conversation that gets started about why might it seem to be here or there or there. That's the sort of significant little piece of it.
Oh, yeah.
And some people are talking in terms of implications. Evelyn was just talking from the perspective of how would you make this actually happen in life? And that would also, I think, be why you'd say useful skills, because it's not a matter of feeling love and grounding, it's getting a lot better at it in that sense. So it's really, at this point, I think what we're trying to do is open up a deeper conversation about what all this is pointing to and how it connects with the interrelated reality of our society. And Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to have this conversation. Thank you, Niels, for raising the question. I think about the indigenous in Ecuador. I'm from Ecuador. For those of you that don't know me, I'm living in Ecuador now. And certainly with the indigenous in the Amazon, common religion is core to this particular item, because the indigenous revere nature and feel they're a part of nature, not separate from it. And also our Constitution in Ecuador gives rights to nature. So that nature has rights in Ecuador, and as Evelyn was saying about putting it also in secure existence, that there is a part of that in Ecuador, and there's been many court cases recently where the indigenous have won their cases because of the constitutional provision that nature has rights.
Yes.
So it's interesting how it really does fit in many different ways. I think the major thing is that it's in cultural commonality.
Why, Jane?
I'm complete.
Jane, what's your insight about putting it in cultural commonality?
That I think that the final meanings one, I'm not sure what's under final meanings, but certainly the skill of appreciating nature, and also the urgency of the situation around nature at this point in time, and the devastation happening in our world, to me, places so I have a very small screen, guys. Could somebody read off what the final meanings one is?
Individual integrity, social morality, ultimate concern.
Okay.
So for those of you viewing my screen, this is a layer down into cultural commonality. So this is the
Yes,
second
thank you.
triangle.
Thank you, Lauren.
Okay. So it is to have, so part of it, the conversation is to understand the interrelatedness of of life. And I'm wondering, when we actually put it somewhere, the lines are helpful, but do we want to actually place that card in one particular area or not?
But when this was done many years ago,
Mhm.
we tried to distinguish between which part of which social process was responsible for making that happen, and
Oh,
which social process was impacted by it. And I think a third question is, where are there strong implications? So as we go, it would be helpful to clarify when
Mhm.
we say where it goes. If
What
like
was-
say, if nurture, love, and grounding in and for surrounding nature and ecology, if that, which part of the social process is that gonna make it happen? Is it final meetings and social morality that's gonna make that happen? Is it common religion and myth and rite and symbol? Which one is gonna be, or is it something in significant engagement?
Well,
And
can I say, before you get to that question, it seemed to me the wording of that nurture, love / grounding, that's those words start the whole phraseology. And nurture and love are not economic, and they're not political.
Mm.
And that's why I believe it goes in cultural commonality.
mm,
And then when somebody mentioned natural resources, I thought, oh, absolutely, that's an implication.
Mhm.
yeah, that's helpful.
So part of what is going on in me is reminding myself the economic, political, and cultural, the meaning of those words has been biased by our own society.
mm,
And so we also have to help ourselves, I have to help myself see the words differently. Economic is nurturing. Economic is about the sustenance of the whole thing. Political is about collaboration. It's about the cooperation of the whole thing. And cultural is about the meaning of the whole thing. Anyway, that was my first thought. My second thought was that what this is about, I don't know where this goes in the triangle, but what it's about is reminding me that the we is including nature. What you said, Jane, about Ecuador is
yeah.
this is the shift, is that when we talk about we're not just talking about all us humans.
Right.
And that's what I think that's what this is about. And so I do think it goes under cultural, but it has to do with the worldview. But then it goes under final meanings, and then I don't like it because it sounds intellectual rather than
Scary.
anyway, so I'm complete.
Okay. Good.
The comment one of you made, I've now lost who, about what would have to happen to make, what's got to change, or where would action have an impact on this?
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know where it fits even on the triangle, but there's something in there about the behavior change required of people who are making the mess.
And it could also be legal in a sense. Like in Ecuador, having this in the Constitution has enabled other things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's the question, is behavior change influenced by, well, if we look at imaginal education, by messages, changing deeply held assumptions about life, and what is the best mechanism to do that related to the environment? I think legal is actually a pretty strong influencer.
There's a colleague, Herman Green, who's been helping publish a textbook on Earth law that's trying to
Oh.
work into the legal profession and legal training, the capacity to integrate what Jane's talking about, some of what's happened in places like Ecuador in terms of granting rights to rivers and forests and stuff. I'm almost looking at this one and I'm thinking to myself, nurture love, grounding in for surrounding nature ecology. If you put the emphasis on on building nurture, love, and grounding, then that's one thing. If you say, no, there's plenty nurture, love, and grounding, but it's in and for the three people around me and people who look like me. And so that it's like, what will it take? Is it have to do with building nurture and love, or does it have to do with shifting the basis of what we're loving and grounding to nature and ecology from my car?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even
Your
know.
car can still, car can still be loved. It's expanding the sphere. It's not kicking your car out of the sphere.
Sonny, you want to come in on that one?
No, thank you.
Well, Jim, I think that for me, I forget the phrases you used, but you talked about how the social triangles were to be used. And one is, I don't remember the wording at all. So I hope I'm causing you to remember them. But it seems to me that we need to define which one of those approaches we're talking about, because they lead to different conclusions.
Yes.
Well, here's my insight. By the time we do about 2 of these columns, we'll be a lot clearer on what would seem to be the most helpful way to do it. I mean, I think we're fogging around in what this is pointing to, what's really going on. And I think our aim is to get that clarification, but we're probably a good way of doing it might be to go ahead and do a couple of more of these and see what we come up with, and then reflect a little bit and say, now, what's the most helpful way of answering these questions? Does that make sense?
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we'll put another one there. Oh, and Lauren, the other one was A2, and this is now A3.
Oh.
So all of these are A's. Okay. Expand our story and identities to planetary.
Which includes telling the vibrant story of our times, articulating biophilic ethics, values, and behaviors, and telling the connectedness story broadly and substantively.
Real commonality.
So economic, political, culture, and I like that. Where does it need to be generated from? Maybe, where would you make that happen? Okay.
To me, expanding our story and identities to planetary has more to do with meaning or cultural commonality than it has to do with sustaining or defending. And within cultural commonality, expanding our story and identities seems to have to do more with symbol than either wisdom or style. And in symbol, is it a shift in our corporate language? Is it a shift in our social art? Is it a shift in our common religion? I'm not so clear.
Mhm.
Oh, for me, it's social art.
How so?
Story, I guess because I think of storytelling as an art, is an art.
Mhm.
I actually thought about it as being something that we would find in schools everywhere across the world. So I thought about it being more communal wisdom and having to do with either I'm not sure if I would say final meanings or useful skills or accumulated knowledge. But if it's in schools, then I would think that it would be under accumulated knowledge. But because it has to do with our identity, I think it has to do with final meanings. So yeah, just leave it there. Yeah.
Okay. And do we want to look over at the cultural commonality triangle next door? Or is it okay
Yeah.
to stay here?
Be brave, Jan. Let's look at the cultural commonality triangle next door.
Okay.
And also in a minute, let's
Let's take it down one more level then. I don't know if that helps in terms of, like we talked about, social art as interior awareness, eventful consciousness, and radical projection, or down in final meanings as individual integrity, social morality, or ultimate concern.
Oh.
I think back to the responsible for part and the impact part question. I think responsible is under social art because it is the story being created.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the impact is in communal wisdom. Actually, I think the whole triangle, because once you've shifted your story about to being planetary, it's going to impact all three.
Okay.
I'm complete.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think the story has to come. I'm sorry, Neil's, right? Neil's thing about story coming out of social art, I think I resonate with that.
Yes, yes.
How about one more response? Anyone else on this? Okay, well, let's go to the fourth one. Then
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm like grabbing the dominant idea here
Okay.
in the best way I can.
You're doing great.
Starting to look like a squid here.
I think you're doing wonderfully well.
And I think on the chat, we welcome David, but David Dunn has joined us from Colorado. Also, good to see you.
Looking good, David.
Okay, so A4, integrate indigenous patterns of knowing and care. And that the parts of that, Jim, are
learn from First Nations, promulgate land-based education, let the whole earth guide us, practice whole earth thinking.
What was the first one again?
Learn from First Nations.
Learning from First Nations.
And I realize that's a term used in Canada to speak to Indigenous, but it might not be beyond Canada, the First Nations.
Well, even in Canada, we're using Indigenous now.
Mhm.
Well, that would be an example of corporate language continuing to process.
Yes, that's right. Well, yeah, it's a fascinating Aboriginal, or go back to, yep, Anishinaabe, and where I come from, Anishinaabe. So, and Jane, just as a point on this, in Ecuador, what phrase is used in indigenous patterns? Would you also say that, or?
You're asking Jane, I don't know if she's on the
Okay.
computer right now. She's
Okay.
away. Looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so where do we have a sense this one goes? Economic, political, culture, as Larry said, sustenance, cooperation, or meaning.
My first hit was the collaboration. Yeah. There's an accumulated knowledge piece, but and expanding that. But there's something about working with them and working with the land that's a cooperative kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And Sunny, where are you holding collaboration then?
Oh, that's under political. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see which one in there.
Oh, that's right. Okay. That's where I.
Lauren, could you move that canvas up
Maybe.
slightly?
Significant engagement.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's another piece of that secure engagement too. I mean, existence, secure existence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So part of our secure existence depends on integrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm gonna fix that.
there are parts of the world that the indigenous people are the people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where there are parts of the
And-
world, there are parts of the world where the colonizers are the colonized. Anyway, I'm struggling with the intention
Mm.
is about the original wisdom. Is that right? Is that what this is around?
Yeah, I would think so.
Mhm.
I was, although you did remind me that in many, when I was doing some studying the shamanic situations in Venezuela, and found that to be true in North America too, that the word for the ones that are in your tribe was people. They're the people. And the word for those that were not in your tribe was the words for not people.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes.
So it's kind of stark, the difference.
Well, and if you stand in one place, how many different tribes have been the original people of that place?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think in some ways, maybe well, two things. In some ways, maybe the insight, maybe another word for pointing to this is pre-modern. How do we embrace
Hmm.
cultures and ways of operating that predate sort of how we've been doing things, the dominant ways we've been doing things around the world the last century or so. No, no.
To me, to,
We were
to me,
watching a TV series, and there was a little section in which this girl was kidnapped and taken to a residential school because they were trying to turn the savages into good citizens. And it occurred to me that was those residential schools were a strategy for building cultural commonality.
right.
And I found myself thinking a little bit, somebody brought this up in terms of old language. At the time these were built, we said to ourselves, what does a social process do? It builds commonality. So we've got common ways of doing economics and common ways of doing culture and common ways of doing political, so we can cooperate. And it may be that we've got to come up with a different term that that by which we understand the ways economically we rub up against one another, and politically we rub up against one another, and culturally we rub up against one another. That's something broader than just aiming for some common way of doing it. Maybe we're talking about an economic ecology, a political ecology, a cultural ecology in which the different ways of operating somehow kind of try to work together as opposed to having one way of doing things.
Well, but isn't it also true that on cultural and political and economic, there are different ways of going about achieving the commonality, and from my ethical point of view, some of them are not good. And others are good.
And I think that the commonality points to the fact that every society has this going on, not that they're doing it the same way. And the same with every piece of society, as Niels points out. Some of them are doing it in a way that's not all that helpful to the rest of us.
I missed part of the discussion, so forgive me if I'm jumping in inappropriately here, guys. This Indigenous integrate to me is something that's an action. And I see it in part under useful skills. And I'm thinking of the Indigenous peoples in the Yosemite Valley who always did controlled burns until we had a policy of no fires in national parks. And now that knowledge is being reintegrated into how the national park system operates, knowing that controlled burns is a healthy way to help preserve some forests. Sequoia forest is one of the forests that benefits from it. So there's something about doing something in this one. And I think skills could be a place where it goes under cultural commonality.
Yes, I think that Indigenous knowing, patterns of knowing and caring, at least has shown up in some of the tribes and the tribal work in Taiwan related to bamboo forests. And then what the scientists discovered was that bamboo forests will will take in carbon within 7 years of having been planted.
Wow.
Whereas other forests take much longer to be able to replace carbon with air. So
Oof.
it was kind of, oh, really? Bamboo forests. Who would have thought bamboo forests?
Right.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I like the useful skills over there on the right under where it's
Mhm.
basic techniques, inclusive technologies, and supportive technologies or supportive techniques.
Mm-hmm.
It's, going after that from those who have cared for the land for millennia and
Mhm. Mhm.
know what they're doing and what they're talking about and how to do it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to invite us to stand back and just look at the social process for a moment and our lines and our, what are you aware of, reflections on what we've done so far, or observations? What's it telling you? Mhm.
One thing that's impressive to me is these 4 items seem to be talking about something somehow real in our experience that needs to be made to happen pervasively. I guess another question that needs to be made to happen.
Mhm.
Say that again, Jim.
You all seem to think these are talking about something real, which is
Yeah.
exciting to me.
Ah,
They're pointing to something that's real.
Mhm.
One of the things I'm observing is that most of the arrow points are in cultural commonality, but the one sub-triangle, corporate welfare, has more arrow points than any other sub-triangle, and that's culture. So it seems to me that those connections are
They're related.
are
Mhm.
definitely related. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm continue to answer that question if you want to, but